Now, welcome back to Good Morning Vail. I am honored to be joined here on the couch because this is a very, very important topic. And with the rise of the COVID pandemic and before, kids are falling behind in their education, specifically in math, because they don't understand why they need to use it. And joining me today is Dr. Aditya Nagrath, who is the founder of Elephant Learning. How are you?
Hi, great. Thank you for having me.
So I mentioned, with the COVID pandemic, it's really, I think, heightened and highlighted education, and specifically around mathematics. And you are such an impressive person. And so how did you decide to come up with Elephant Learning?
So we came up with Elephant Learning because we had done some research and we had found out that 4 out of 5 students start kindergarten unprepared for the kindergarten curriculum. And this happens completely along income lines. And the reason why is because the top 20% earners are able to send their children to preschool. And in preschool, they ensure that they meet the standard for counting to 10. But ultimately, that's what we learned, is that students were coming in and they didn't really understand counting to 10. And that was because that there's this gap between what the parent thinks counting to 10 is and what the standards say counting to 10 is.
And starting at such a young age and not being comfortable with that, it creates anxiety. So talk to me about mathematic anxiety and how it is a very much real thing.
Like the stem of the mathematics anxiety is this idea of understanding that language of mathematics. So we focus on teaching the mathematics of language, the language of mathematics. And so like when you don't understand the teacher and you're trying to just get through and get to the next level, whatever that is, anxiety starts to form because it looks like everyone around you understands this and you're supposed to know it, but like there's like this imposter syndrome starting to form. And it's kind of maybe the basis of where it all comes from.
Yeah, you don't want to let your teacher down. And then on top of that, you want to seem like you're keeping up with everybody in the classroom. So then that anxiety just starts to compound as you get older and you learn more and you move through the school system and the curriculum. Now, Elephant Learning, very impressive. So you have a background in computer programming. You learned the C++ language at the age of 14.
Yeah.
So naturally, you moved into this application development process. So what inspired it? How did you create Elephant Learning? Tell me all about it.
Sure. What we inherited was a program that was funded by the National Science Foundation and partly by the Toyota Foundation. And it had activities for 4 and 5-year-olds. These activities help demonstrate the concepts to the students. So like, think about it like teaching the colors. You have to show a student red things, and then they have to infer that red refers to the color. So you show them a red truck, a red ball, a red whatever, and you're labeling it, red truck, red ball, etc. So they learn that red refers to the color. In the same way, like we teach the quantities, it's same thing that parents would do. How many fingers am I holding up? Or can you give me 6 things? And then from there, we teach them the operations. And again, they have to kind of live with it. So like, give me 5 things, give me 4 more things. How many do I have now? It's the idea of 5 plus 4. So through these activities, they actually learn the language of mathematics, and then they understand the teacher better in the classroom because they have a experience or a reference point to think back to when they look at the written mathematics.
And so, oftentimes with math, you're just doing it, you're executing it, and that's it. You don't think about the why or whatnot. And so through your program, you're able to kind of appreciate and initiate that conversation as well.
Yeah, so like the real thing that they're getting out of it is this ability to see, when do I use these operations to solve problems? And that's what's most important, because if you've memorized your multiplication tables, but you can't use multiplication to solve a real life problem or a word problem, then multiplication is absolutely useless to you. Even if you're memorizing the mnemonic, right? In real life, when the multiplication problem shows up, you don't have a mnemonic.
Yeah.
So really, we make math useful for the student.
Yeah, so speaking of students, how many students have worked through your program? You've been in business 7 years, so very impressive. Tell me all about it.
So over the last 7 years, we've had over 150,000 students go through our system. We ran a research study on 56,000 students, and what we found was that on average, they learned 1.67 years of math over the course of 13 weeks. They used it just under 40 minutes per week. Our initial study had them learning about 1.5 years of math over the course of 10 weeks, using it just under 30 minutes per week. So those numbers, they basically line up. So we're reproducing the experiment over and over again.
And that's great. And so you mentioned a year and a half of math, so that just boosts them a year and a half up into the grade level that they should be, or maybe above if they're doing really well.
Right. Well, we focus on the essential topics. And yeah, when you teach it as a language, they're able to pick it up a little bit faster. They might not be able to execute the operations with fluency is what they call it, like speed, right? But they're able to execute it. So that's, in modern society, that's like better, because you can always pull out a calculator and you could always execute it if you could figure out which are the operations that you need to run. But then ultimately, again, we actually make the math useful to the student because they're able to use it.
So Dr. Aditya, tell me about the rise of smartphones. You know, people are relying on their smartphones for any kind of answers. So mathematic calculations specifically. I love the idea that you have an app and you're able to teach people. So what are you seeing from like kids' perspective? You know, how many kids, like what's the average age? Do you feel like they're learning a little bit better? Tell me more.
Right, so we cover from counting through algebra, and we've had students of almost all ages, because like if you're struggling with upper level mathematics, typically there's a misconception in algebra or earlier. The average age might be 7 or 8 years old, but that's because the range is wide. And I think that like the most amazing thing is that we have students that come in, they don't like mathematics, they don't like math in the classroom, and then they use our system, and then after being able to understand what's happening in the classroom, now mathematics is engaging to them because they're able to participate in the classroom. The games themselves, again, there are activities that like are demonstrating the concepts, like give me 5 things, give me 4 more things, how many do I have now? Or, you know, like for multiplication, we have rows or groups of items. So like each group has 7, and you can see there's 4 groups. How many things do we have? And there's curtains that ensure that like they just can't count them up.
Oh,
so like,
good.
What we do then is that like these activities, they're not really hiding the math, but they feel like a puzzle game to the student, and a lot of students start to engage with it.
And it really just increases their confidence in the classroom. I love that.
Yeah, and it builds problem-solving skills, and then also it builds intuition into this idea of induction. So like that's the idea that what's true on smaller numbers is also true on larger numbers. So that's what we do, is we go through the operations and we kind of start with small numbers, and we may move them up so that they see it working through small to larger numbers.
Great. So talk to me about parent involvement in elephant learning. You know, where can they go for more information? How do they get involved in making sure that their kids are really learning and utilizing your tools?
Sure. Yeah. So like for the parent, we have these dashboards, and the dashboards tell the parent what the student's working on, where there might be struggles, so if they needed to focus, they could. And also like what activities you could be doing outside of the system to reinforce those same ideas. Like when we determine that they're ready for fluency with addition or multiplication, we might give you card games to play so that you're multiplying and you're building that speed and that memorization. But after they've understood it, so they understand why they're doing it. But basically, to get started, they could just go to elephantlearning.com. You put in your email address, and that's the way to get started. From there, you can download an app onto the tablet of the student. But yeah, everything's available basically through website and through app.
Awesome. Now, I think it's so important, and it's a great way to bond with your child too. So I love that you have a parent side of it that can really make sure that things are happening.
We have coaching videos that show like how could you work with the student. We typically recommend the Y method, and we give this out for free. So I've said this on podcasts before, but basically what it is you let the student answer incorrectly, and then you ask them, why do you think that's the right answer? So it's kind of like asking them to show their work. But like for kind of the younger students, the why is around the language. So when the student tells you why, you're going to be able to see what is it that they don't understand and what is the language you need to clarify, or if you just need to give them a hint so that they get that aha moment.
I love that. So talk to me about the results. What results
Sure.
are you seeing?
Yeah, well, on average, again, students are learning years of mathematics over the course of several months, using it just 10 minutes a day, 10 to 20 minutes a day. And I mean, they go into the classroom, they feel more confident, they start to say that I actually do enjoy math class, they start to see the usefulness of math in everyday life, they start talking about it with their parents. So like, yeah.
It's just a great, so 1.5 years, they can increase it in about 12 to 13 weeks. their knowledge base. It's great.
Yeah, again, we focus on the essential topics as a language. The goal was, can I get them to understand the teacher in the classroom so that we could fill that gap? Because what we did see was that over time, the education system in America works for those top 20% income earners. And this makes sense because if you came into the education system able to understand the teacher, then the education system is effective. So then the question is how can we make it effective for everyone?
Yeah, how can you provide supplemental income or not income, but supplemental education that's fun?
Right.
Absolutely.
Supplemental education that could then make it so that when they participate in the classroom, it's useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Now, tell us where we can go for more information and find out any other details that we need to know.
Sure. Everything's on our website, elephantlearning.com. If you find us on Facebook, you can DM us. I think Instagram also works. But yeah, just contact us, email us at support@elephantlearning.com. We're happy to answer any questions, but almost everything's on our website.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Aditya, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love your passion and your knowledge. It's so impressive to see the research that you put into this and just the passion you have to help elevate education and the school system. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now stay tuned. We have a lot more here on this next episode, so we'll be right back after this.